Welcome to another bonus edition of Upon Further Review. And in this edition, we'll be talking about the Seattle Seahawks at the Philadelphia Eagles. You can catch this Week 14 matchup on December 7th at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, and that'll be aired on your local Fox affiliates. This is Upon Further Review, and what we're doing here is we have Madden gameplay. They were having the highlights. We edited the highlights, and while I'm doing the Upon Further Review, we got the highlights here for you to watch. And in these highlights, what this game was I was playing as the Seattle Seahawks, and the dreaded Pirate Redbeard was the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Seahawks are going to win. The dreaded Pirate Redbeard picked the Eagles, and so we went head to head. And there's the highlights for you to watch while I do this Upon Further Review. And so let's go over the numbers for these two teams. The Seahawks are 8-4 heading into this game. The Eagles are 9-3. And the Seahawks started off in Week 1, the very first game of the season. They faced off against the Packers. That was in Seattle, and they beat Green Bay by 20 points. Then in Week 2, they went to San Diego, and they lost to the Chargers by 9. In Week 3, they hosted the Broncos in the rematch of Super Bowl 48, and they beat the Broncos in overtime. Then they had their bye week, and in October, Week 5, they started off by going to Washington. They beat the Redskins on Monday Night Football, but then they had a 2-game losing streak. First, hosting the Cowboys. The Cowboys came in, and the Cowboys beat the Seahawks by 7 points. And then Seattle went to St. Louis, and they lost to the Rams, their division rivals, by just 2 points in a somewhat controversial fashion, as I'm sure you're all familiar with. And then in Week 8, they ended up going to Carolina, and that was the beginning of a 3-game winning streak. They beat the Panthers, then they hosted the Raiders and the Giants. They beat both of those teams. Then in Week 11, they went to Kansas City, and they lost a hard-fought game. It just came down to 4 points. It was back and forth. It could have went either way. But since losing that game to Kansas City, they've won 2 in a row. First, both of them against division rivals, but first against the Cardinals. That was in Seattle. They beat them 19-3. And then they went to San Francisco on Thursday Night Football on the short week, and they ended up beating the Niners with the same score that was on Thanksgiving, the night game, and that was 19-3 as well. So 2 big wins against division rivals, and here they are going against the Eagles. The Eagles are right there. They got the Cowboys breathing down their throats, and the Seahawks are breathing down the Cardinals' throats, and they actually have nothing but division games remaining on their schedule after this Sunday. So they'll have the Niners, the Cardinals, and the Rams. 2 of those are in Seattle, and the one road game besides this one here that the Seahawks have left is against the Cardinals. Before the Eagles, that's who they're facing. That's where they're going. They're going into Philadelphia. And the Eagles started off the season red hot. They were 3-0 to start things off. They first beat Jacksonville. That was in Philadelphia. They then went to Indianapolis, and they beat the Colts. It was by 3 points, and they were actually responsible for having Andrew Luck start 0-2 for the first time in his career. They then, went back to Philadelphia. They faced off against the Redskins. They beat their division rivals. That was also by a field goal. Then Week 4, they went to San Francisco, and the Niners got their first win in Levi's Stadium in the regular season. And that was a close game, too. They lost by just 5 points, the Eagles did. And their defense, actually, that week was the #1 fantasy defense, even though they lost. So they had so many special teams points. The Eagles won the next 2 games. They went back to Philly. They beat the Rams. They beat the Giants, and then they had their bye week. So heading into their bye week, they were 5-1. But then coming out the bye week, they went to Arizona, lost a close game. It was just a 4-point game, and they lost to the Cardinals. And then in Week 9, they ended up going against Houston, and they won that game, but they lost Nick Foles. They ended up winning by 10 points. Sanchez came in relief. And then that was the beginning of a 2-game winning streak, a little mini winning streak. They ended up going back home and beating the Panthers pretty decisively. They beat them by 24 points. But then in Week 11, they went to Green Bay, and they got spanked by the Packers by 33 points in Lambeau Field. But since losing that game, though, They are on another mini winning streak, having won the last two, which means they won 4 out of their last 5. And the last 2 games were against Tennessee, that was in Philly in Week 12, and then in Week 13 they went to Dallas, that was on Thanksgiving, and on Thanksgiving they've never lost in Dallas, and they won that game 33-10. And now, after having plenty of rest and time to prepare for this game, as did Seattle, it just so happened that both of these teams played on Thanksgiving, and now they're playing against each other, and the Eagles will be hosting the Seahawks. Let's go over the numbers here, and you see in this game and the gameplay so far, it's a tie score. There's both of our offenses were moving the ball there. Hope you're enjoying watching this game here between myself and the dreaded pirate Redbeard. As you see, you just kind of edited together all the plays. I just edited it out. Any points where, we're picking the plays and stuff, trying to make it just straight action for you, make it more entertaining, make a better show for you. We greatly appreciate everybody watching and listening. But yeah, let's go over the numbers. Go inside the numbers upon further review. That's the name of the show, and that's what we do. So let's do some upon further review. And when it comes to passing proficiency between these two teams, the Seahawks are 29th in the NFL, and the Eagles are 5th. So the Seahawks have a lot of trouble passing the ball. They don't actually really pass the ball too much. We'll go even further into the numbers in a moment on that. The Eagles, they're 5th, and they are very good at passing the ball. Really, they're just really good on offense. They have one of the most potent offenses in all of football. Regardless of Nick Foles going down, Mark Sanchez stepped in, and he's actually, you could argue he's doing better maybe. We shall see how at the end of the season how that all plays out, but he definitely isn't missing much of a beat, and he's looked like a whole new Sanchez. He's not dirty anymore, but anyway, so then now in the passing game, or the passing defense, the Seahawks have the 3rd best passing defense in terms of yards allowed through the air per game, and the Eagles are 26th. So it's kind of a little bit of a flip-flop how as good as the Eagles are on offense, and when it comes to their passing game, the Seahawks are even better at passing defense. And as bad as the Seahawks are with their passing offense, well, the Eagles' defense is right there with them. They're not too good against the pass either. So these teams actually match up pretty even though it's interesting because it's like their weaknesses match up and their strengths match up, because you're going to be having the strength of the Eagles' offense. That's their strength, their offense, and the 5th-ranked passing offense against that 3rd-ranked passing defense of the Seahawks, and that 29th ranked passing offense of the Seahawks against the 26th ranked passing defense of the Eagles. So it's almost a push. It really is kind of like flip a coin and who has the advantage, because like I said, they match up really well. I'm actually going to give a slight advantage to the Seahawks here, though. They said they're just so good on defense. They've really been playing really excellent in the last stretch, as their numbers just get better and better and better every week in terms of their defense. And their passing offense, it doesn't have like big numbers, but it's been improving as well. And Russell Wilson makes a lot of clutch plays. So now let's look at the running attacks of these two teams. And the Seahawks have the number 1 rushing offense in all of football in terms of yards on the ground per game. And the Eagles, they're right there next to them. They're number 6. They've really been coming on strong in their running game as of late. LaShawn McCoy's been stepping it up, and he's been doing pretty good on the simulation here. I've been having trouble stopping him. But let me look at the running defenses of these two teams. The Seahawks are 5th in the NFL in terms of yards allowed on the ground, and the Eagles are 11th. So the Seahawks, like I said, their defense is just really gelled. They solidified. They've really come together. And early in the season, they won that first game pretty big. They did kind of seem to have, though, a little bit of an area where they kind of were learning to get used to the changes in the off season in terms of personnel. But in the last stretch, they've been just really playing great defense. And the Eagles, their defense is interesting, in terms of they figure out ways to score. Like they seem to kind of bend. They even let up some points, but they then find ways to cause turnovers. But with their run defense, they're decent. Ranked 11th, but up against Marshawn Lynch, beast mode, and that Seattle Seahawks running game, it's going to be a long day for Philly. Right here in the simulation that you're seeing, we're starting the second half. Let's take a look at this kickoff here to begin the second half and see what happens here. Oh, look at this. Oh, my goodness. Lockett. He could go. He should go. All the way. Touchdown. Opening kickoff of the second half. Running it back on the dreaded Pirate Redbeard for a touchdown. Alright, but let's get back to the numbers now. And, I was talking about the running game. The advantage is in the Seahawks' favor. The Eagles got a good running game too, but Seahawks, they're number 1, and their defense is number 5. Can't really argue with that. Even though, like I said, the Eagles, they're good. It's going to be an interesting game. And it's in Philadelphia. But let's look at the points allowed and the points scored. When it comes to points scored, the Seahawks are 11th in the NFL. The Eagles are 4th. So they both put points on the board. The Eagles, though, they put up more. They're saying they come up with ways to score, whether it's on offense, on defense, or on special teams. The Eagles will put points on the scoreboard. But that's where the Seahawks defense comes into play and needs to have a big game, because they're the 3rd ranked defense in terms of points allowed. So these two teams match really well right there with the Eagles team that puts all those points on the board. Well, the Seahawks doesn't really let up many points. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when Chip Kelly's offense meets up against Pete Carroll's defense. And then, like I said, the Seahawks, they don't put a lot of points on the board themselves, but they can. They can put points on the board. Whereas the Eagles, they let up kind of a lot of points. That's where they get into trouble, is that they actually will let points up on the board and let teams get in the end zone. That's where they kind of struggle. There's times when the Eagles defense is excellent and they just shut teams down, but then there's other times where they just kind of seem like, what's going on? They're letting up all these points, and especially it'll seem like the Eagles will jump out to big leads a lot of times, and then they let teams that aren't necessarily up to their caliber, they're not quite as good as the Eagles. They'll let them score and start getting back into games that teams that maybe you think like, well, what is the Eagles defense doing, falling asleep at the wheel? They can't do that against Seattle. Seattle's not one of those teams. Seattle is the defending Super Bowl champions. And if you let up on them, you fall asleep at the wheel with a little bit of a lead, they will come in there and they can put up points too and get right back in the game. And that's the thing, though, it's not points are gonna come easy in this game anyway against the Seahawks. But the Eagles are gonna have to get creative, and they're gonna have to find ways to score, possibly on defense, more likely to try to figure out some way to score on special teams. That would really be the way that the Eagles, in my opinion anyway, if they want to have success in this game, if they want to beat the Seahawks, they got to score on special teams. But they got to figure out a way to stop the Seahawks from scoring. Like I said, not like the Seahawks put up necessarily a lot of points, but the Eagles do let up kind of a lot, And like I said, no lead's really that safe with the Eagles either. If they even do get out to a lead, the Seahawks can come right back in. And that's why this game is probably likely to come down to the wire. Like I said, on paper, it's Seahawks all the way. They have the advantage once again, like I said, on when it comes to scoring. So the advantage in the passing game, the running game, and on the scoreboard all goes to Seattle. You can argue with that if you want. If you want to argue that the Seahawks have some advantage in the passing game, you could, but against that Seattle secondary, that's a tough argument to make. Of course, we'll see when this game is played. I don't think it's going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, and it's very likely that the Eagles could win this game. They are at home. It's almost a game that they kind of should win, and they kind of need to win, especially if they want to win the division. But I believe that the Seahawks right now, they're smelling blood, and they're going for the jugular. They see the Cardinals in their sights, and the possibility of repeating as division champs when that actually seemed out of reach, at least to a lot of people, from a standpoint of spectators. But I'll tell you what, in Seattle, in that locker room, and in the stands, the 12th man, they all believe the Seahawks would find a way to get back in it. And here we are, they're just one game back at the Cardinals, and they still get to play them one more time, and they got 3 games in the division left to play as well. So they're right there, but they got to win this game first. They can't be looking ahead to San Fran next week or the Cardinals 2 weeks from now. They got to concentrate on the task at hand. I believe they will do that. And the way their defense is playing right now, they've only let up 6 points in the last 2 games. All right? So go up against that defense and then give me a call and tell me how you're feeling afterwards, because you're going to say, hey, let me get a couple aspirin, I've got a headache. That's the kind of thing. They'll punch you in the mouth and they'll leave you with a friggin' broken nose. You'll say, how did I get a broken nose? You punched me in the mouth. But hey, that's what the Seahawks do to people. They aren't the defending Super Bowl champs for nothing. So it'll be an interesting game. It's going to be an interesting game in a week of interesting games. I mean, we got plenty of great games this week. I'm just going to have such a great time covering them and watching them, and I know that all of you will too, and I'm definitely looking forward to those starting up. Can't wait to enjoy all the football. It's going to be excellent. Like I said, this is going to be one of the top games to watch. I mean, like I said, all the games, there's so many games. At least half of the games are games that are featuring, teams that are either both 500 or in the playoff hunt in some way. Because you got the, 7 games are teams that are both 500 or better. And then you got that Falcons versus Panthers game that's also, they're both still technically in it for the South, even though they're both well below 500. But right here, we see the dreaded Pirate Redbeard. He got me. There's still a minute and a half left in this gameplay, but he's up by 2 touchdowns, and right there you see there's the nail on the coffin. He intercepted me for the 3rd time. The dreaded Pirate Redbeard gets me again. I have beat him. As those of you who've seen the 2 of us go at it, we don't always go at it. Sometimes it's just me versus the computer. But he has been getting me. Like I said, though, I have beat him before. And those videos, if you go back and look, you'll see that I've gotten him at least a couple times. But anyway, the show's about to wrap up. This game's coming to a close. I don't have any timeouts left. And all he has to do is really just let the clock run down. But let me know, though, in the comments section below, what do you think is going to happen in this game? Do you think that the Eagles are going to win? Do you think the Seahawks will win? Do you think it's going to be a close game? I think it will be a close game. I think it's going to come right down to the wire, to the very end, to the final play. Or definitely the final couple minutes. I can't wait to see. But let me know, and I can't wait to read your comments either, and your thoughts and opinions on the game. Let me know also what you think of the new show, the new format that we're trying out. Trying to make things better, more enjoyable for our audience that we greatly appreciate. There's your player of the game, LaShawn Shady McCoy, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. If he has a performance like that, then the Eagles should have the W. If he puts up those kind of numbers, I think the Seahawks are going to win. But we saw, Dread Pirate Redbeard, he thinks the Eagles, and he proved it by beating me. At least he put his money where his mouth is. We'll see if the Seahawks can put their money where my mouth is. Wait, it doesn't sound right. But here's our play of the game. And look, hey, that's all that matters. We won the battle of the play of the game. We had the top highlight. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. It matters if you're number 1 on SportsCenter. And that's it right there. That kick return to start the second half. Well, really, winning is all that matters, right? That's what Lombardi said. But anyway, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. And also, if you want more content like this, go ahead and subscribe as we bring you upon further reviews and recaps of all the games. Not as many upon further reviews as we have in the past. Thank you very much for watching. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and a great weekend, and enjoy all the sports.